In today's ever-changing world and fast pace of technology, staying ahead can be a difficult challenge. To be respected in your field and earn the salary that you deserve, you need to not only understand this technology, but also to put it to work for others. At Lantell Learning Systems, we understand this. During the next few minutes, we'll demonstrate our Windows 2000 computer-based training series. We'll cover the many training features that set our courses apart and why we think our learning system is the best solution to meet your needs. Later in this demonstration, you'll have a chance to actually try out some courses. Zone replication, dynamic host configuration protocol, public key infrastructure, disk management. Windows 2000 introduces many new technologies that need to be understood and mastered. At Lantell, we know that the best way to learn these technologies is by doing. In our training programs, users have frequent opportunity to interact with the training material through intensive hands-on interactions, which simulate real-life scenarios. These interactions help increase retention, resulting in increased understanding and reduced training time. Each course offers frequent opportunities for practice in the form of simulations and exercises, providing students with a sound understanding of underlying concepts. At the end of every module, students take a test to assess their knowledge of a particular subject. Because of the highly interactive nature of the training environment, our students become involved with the subject matter in a meaningful way. This provides them with a consistent and high-quality means to get their training. The result is that a student can learn at his or her own pace and is free to make mistakes in private. At Lantell, we know that people don't learn unless learning is interesting. Besides the use of interactions to challenge you, all our courses use high-quality sound, graphics, and animations. This helps you to better understand the subject matter and helps you visualize how things fit together and work. Because the training has been developed using experts that know how people learn, the end result is a hands-on multimedia course that's delivered using high-quality graphics, sound, video, and animations. Training is of no use if it doesn't fit your lifestyle. Our training programs are designed to support multiple styles of learning. You can either learn by yourself at your own pace, or you can be guided by one of our instructors who will monitor your progress. Because students may not always have the time to finish a module, the Quick Start function lets them resume their training where they left off. Left your CD at home or at work? Use your campus pass to log on and take your training directly from the internet. Want to find out the latest news about Windows 2000 or certification? Log on to our online campus where you can discuss issues regarding Windows 2000 administration or certification with experts or other users that have gone through the process. Your purchase of a Windows 2000 training package entitles you to a 1-year subscription to NetCampus. Courses, simulations and tests are continually being added and updated to reflect the latest needs and trends in administration and certification. The campus library also offers updated files, patches and useful freeware programs that are relevant to Windows 2000. Finally, go ahead and compare the cost, features and quality of our product to other training programs. We're confident that you'll find that we bring you the most value for your money. Now that you're familiar with some of the features of our Windows 2000 computer-based training, I invite you to try an actual working demo. Keep in mind that these examples are only a small sample from our training program. In this module, we'll cover the steps you should take in order to properly install Windows 2000. Before you can install Windows 2000 onto your system, you need to take certain steps in order to ensure that the installation and running of Windows 2000 goes smoothly and without any problems. Preparations for installing Windows 2000 can be broken into the following steps. Making sure that the hardware in your computer is adequate to run Windows 2000. Preparing your computer for the installation. And finally, you need to decide what type of installation to perform. Take time to plan your installation. Carrying out the proper steps prior to installation will help you avoid expensive and time-consuming mistakes. Here are a number of steps that you'll need to carry out in order to successfully prepare for a Windows 2000 installation. Let's see if you can match the steps on the right with their corresponding groups in the diagram. You can do this by dragging each step into the corresponding group with your mouse. Successful installation requires preparation. Taking the time to plan your installation will help you avoid expensive and time-consuming mistakes. Before you can install Windows 2000 onto your system, you must make sure that it meets certain minimum hardware requirements. The hardware must be compatible with Windows 2000. Microsoft has put out a list of minimum and recommended configurations for installing Windows 2000. Which of the following do you think are minimum and recommended configurations? Drag each hardware specification into either the minimum or recommended configuration slot. You can do this by dragging a specification over to the respective computer with your mouse. While Windows 2000 may run under a minimum configuration, in order to get good usability from the powerful features of Windows 2000, you should be using at least the recommended configuration.
Now click the forward button to continue.
Hardware compatibility has been a problem with Windows NT. Even though Windows 2000 now supports plug and play, you may still encounter problems during the installation process. This is especially true if your system uses specialized, non-standard network display or storage adapters. It's highly recommended that you consult the Windows 2000 hardware compatibility list to make sure that your hardware is supported. Microsoft includes an upgrade report in Windows 2000. This checks your system for hardware and software compatibility, then prints a report listing the incompatible components that need to be upgraded before installing Windows 2000. Also, Keep in mind that some older hardware requires direct access to the system, which is not supported under Windows 2000. You can still use such hardware by installing Windows 2000 in a dual boot configuration. Remember, the primary reason a Windows 2000 installation will fail is because of hardware incompatibility problems. Before you install Windows 2000, you need to decide on an installation path. There are many things that you should consider, including making a decision about whether to upgrade or to perform a new installation of Windows 2000. Do you want to dual boot your computer with another operating system? What kind of partition and file system do you want to install to? And what type of installation will you be performing? One of your first decisions will be to decide whether to upgrade your existing system or to perform a new installation. You can upgrade any version of Windows, including Windows NT, to Windows 2000. Upgrading installs Windows 2000 over your old operating system, while at the same time ensuring that all your program settings and network connections are kept intact. Performing a new installation installs to a new directory. Many of your programs may have to be reinstalled, and you'll lose all your network connections and settings. However, this option ensures that your old operating system will not be ruined by a failed Windows 2000 installation. Performing a new install also allows you to dual boot from either your previous operating system or from Windows 2000. An important consideration before installing Windows 2000 is deciding if you want the ability to choose between operating systems every time you start your computer. This is known as dual boot configuration. For example, you could have DOS and Windows 98 installed on Drive C and Windows 2000 installed on Drive D. Every time the computer boots up, we're given the option to start any of the operating systems. This might be useful if you have older hardware or programs that only work under DOS or Windows 95 or 98. This way, you can boot to either operating system when you need to use its hardware or programs. Next, you need to choose what kind of partition and file system you want to install Windows 2000 into. If you plan to dual boot, Microsoft strongly recommends that you have a separate partition for each operating system. This prevents system files being overwritten by other operating systems. You can install Windows 2000 on either a FAT, FAT32 or NTFS file system. Each file system has advantages and disadvantages. The advantage of using the FAT file system is that it's compatible with all Microsoft operating systems, including DOS and all versions of Windows. This is important if you need the capability to boot from DOS and to be able to read the contents of your partition. Partitions formatted with FAT32 will only be accessible to Windows 95/98 and Windows 2000. With the FAT32 file system, you have the advantage of bigger partition support and more efficient use of disk space. NTFS version 5 is the recommended file system to use with Windows 2000. It can also be used with Windows NT 4 using Service Pack 4. However, not all the features will be available. Keep in mind that only by using an NTFS partition can you take advantage of some of Windows 2000's more advanced features. These include security settings, which allow you to specify who has access to a file or folder. File level compression, which allows you to specify compression on a per-file basis. Volume extensions. Volumes can be extended to use unallocated free space. This can be done without having to restart the computer. Striped volumes. These allow you to use multiple drives working in tandem to allow for high-speed data access. Encryption, where files can be encrypted to prevent individual files from unauthorized use. Disk quotas. Disk quotas allow you to monitor and control disk space usage among users. Distributed link tracking, which allows you to preserve shortcuts when files are moved from one volume to another or to a different computer. Mount points. These allow you to graft another volume onto an NTFS directory, thus avoiding the need for drive letters. Full text and property indexing, which allows fast searching and retrieval of files and documents. If you plan on using only Windows 2000, your preferred choice should be the NTFS file system. We've covered a lot of detail, so let's review some of the information. On the left are the different Microsoft operating systems. On the right, we have the different file systems with which they're compatible. What file systems do you think are compatible with DOS and Windows 3.1? Click on the correct response with your mouse. Good. Now, what file systems do you think are compatible with Windows 95 and Windows 98? Finally, what file system is compatible with Windows NT4 and Windows 2000? Great. Now, let's see if you can remember some of each file system's important features. Below are some file system attributes. See if you can match these attributes with their respective file systems. Go ahead and do this by dragging each attribute to its file system with your mouse. As you can see, different file systems have different advantages. It's important to carefully consider what file system you will be installing Windows 2000 on. Finally, let's look at some different circumstances and the best installation path to follow for each one. Here, we have a number of situations. Let's see if you know which installation path should be followed for each. After you're finished, go ahead and check your answer. Now that you understand installing, upgrading, partitions and file systems, let's look at the installation options. With Windows 2000, you have a multitude of options on how the operating system can be installed. You can install from one of the following: set up from floppy disk, set up from the CD, set up from a hard disk or removable media, set up from a network drive, unattended install, or automated install. To find out more about each of these installation methods, please click on the appropriate icon. Good. We've looked at the steps that you need to take in order to plan a Windows 2000 installation. You should now understand what these steps are, including making sure that the hardware in your computer is adequate to run Windows 2000, preparing your computer for the installation, and deciding on an installation path. Taking the proper steps prior to installation will help you to avoid expensive and time-consuming mistakes. It will also ensure that the installation and running of Windows 2000 will go smoothly and without any problems. In the introduction, we covered some basic concepts of the network. In this module, we'll introduce you to the network services that are specific to the Windows 2000 operating system. In this module, we'll give you an introduction to TCP/IP, Domain Name System, or DNS, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, or DHCP, Windows Internet Name Service, or WINS. We'll also have a look at the routing and remote access features of Windows 2000, looking at the Network Address Translators, or NATs. And finally, we'll look at how security is implemented using Microsoft Certificate Services. By having a general overview of these topics, it'll be much easier for you to understand them when we go into more detail in the later modules of this program. Computer networks come in different sizes, from small local area networks to wide area networks, for example, the Internet. Computers attached to these networks might be running different operating systems on different types of platforms. In order for these computers to communicate, software must be used so that the information reaches its destination and in a format that can be understood by the receiving computer. In this module, we'll have an overall look at what protocols and features the Windows 2000 operating system uses to communicate with other computers over a network. With the growing importance of global communications, computers need to communicate with an ever-increasing number of users. TCP/IP is a set of network communications standards designed for wide-area networks like the Internet. TCP/IP uses Internet Protocol and IP addresses to locate and connect to hosts. Because TCP/IP is a routable protocol, communications can be initiated from one computer and then routed through a number of other computers until the data reaches its final destination. This makes it ideal for a wide-area network like the Internet, where communications must pass through a number of hosts to reach a final destination. Because of the importance of wide-area communications, TCP/IP is the default protocol used in Windows 2000. Although TCP/IP uses Internet Protocol to locate and connect to hosts, an IP address can be difficult for a typical user to remember. So, the domain name system allows users to type in friendly names to easily locate computers and other resources on an IP network. DNS servers keep track of IP addresses and their associated friendly names. When a request is made using a friendly name, the DNS server automatically converts the address into an IP address that can be used over the Internet. Because TCP/IP depends on IP addresses to communicate, for a TCP/IP-based network to function properly, each computer must have a unique IP address. A computer on a TCP/IP-based network cannot use the same address as another computer on the network. So, to avoid the problem of having an administrator keep track of and assign a unique IP address to each computer, IP addresses can be assigned automatically using Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, or DHCP. DHCP simplifies the administration and management of IP addresses on a TCP/IP network by automatically assigning IP addresses to network clients. The DHCP service can be performed by any Windows 2000 server that is running the DHCP server service. Earlier, we mentioned that DNS converts IP addresses into friendly names. This is called name resolution. Name resolution is an essential part of network administration. It allows you to search your network and connect to resources using names such as Server 1 or Printer 1, rather than having to memorize a host's IP address. Having to remember IP addresses becomes even more impractical when using a DHCP server for automatic IP address allocation. This is because automatic IP assignments can change over time, making it impossible to remember what resources are using what IP addresses. In earlier operating systems, for example Windows NT Server 4, name resolution was performed using the Windows Internet Name Service, or WINS. WINS provides a distributed database for registering and querying a computer name. Because the IP addresses of hosts can change frequently when using a DHCP server, WINS provides a way to dynamically register the changes for computer names to IP addresses mapping. Although Windows 2000 primarily uses DNS to match host names to IP addresses, Windows 2000 still supports WINS in order to be compatible with older operating systems. We've just reviewed some of the most important networking technologies used in Windows 2000. Let's review some of this information. Here we have the technologies that we've just covered. So let's see if you can match each technology with the features that it provides. In order to stay competitive, businesses need to provide customers and business associates easy and convenient access to information and resources. Using the routing and remote access features of Windows 2000, customers, employees, and associates can remotely connect to a network and use the resources on that network. Remote access connection allows users to dial in from remote locations and access resources just as if they were physically attached to the network. Windows 2000 Remote Access provides two different types of connectivity: dial-up remote access and virtual private network remote access. Dial-up remote access connections are made by using the public telephone system to create a physical connection to the server. Typically, a user dials using a modem or an ISDN adapter and makes a direct connection to one of the modems or ISDN adapters on the server. Instead of using direct dial-up connections, a virtual private network uses the Internet for its connections. Typically, a client connects to the Internet first, and then a two-way tunnel is created between the client and the server. Data is then sent encrypted. By using the Internet in this way, companies can reduce the cost of long-distance communications by not having to pay expensive long-distance phone charges. Besides the public IP addresses that are used to access the Internet, IP addresses can also be used internally in private networks. Typically, an organization may use many private IP addresses for their internal network and only one or a few public network addresses to access the Internet. By using a network address translator, or NAT, private internal Internet addresses can be translated into public external addresses. This reduces public IP address registration costs, while still allowing many users to use a few public IP addresses. Besides providing access to network resources, you need to ensure the protection of your organization's valuable resources. One of the technologies provided by Windows 2000 to ensure security on the network are digital certificates. Digital certificates are the electronic equivalent of identification cards, such as passports or driver's licenses. A digital certificate contains information about the owner and is used to verify the owner's identity. This is useful for electronic transactions, for example, secure email, secure communications, log-on authentication, and many other types of digital transactions. Besides the protocols and technologies that are required to communicate on a network, organizations need features that will ensure easy and secure access to resources. We've covered some of the Windows 2000 features that allow organizations to provide easy and secure access to information and resources. Let's review some of this information. Here are some of the features that we've covered. Let's see if you understand what purpose these features serve in providing easy and secure access to network resources. Please match each feature with its purpose. In this module, we've introduced some network services that are specific to the Windows 2000 operating system. You should now have a basic understanding of TCP/IP, the Domain Name System, or DNS, the Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, or DHCP, Windows Internet Name Service, or WINS. We've also looked at the routing and remote access features of Windows 2000, including a look at the network address translators. And finally, we looked at how security is implemented using Microsoft Certificate Services. By having a basic understanding of these topics, it will be much easier for you to understand them when we go into more detail in the later modules of this training program.